further ado, the number one health and wellness coach in all of East Texas, guys, Dr. Greg.
We had several people that they let the rain wimp them out, so I appreciate y'all being here. But it's good to see you again this evening. Some of you, this is your first workshop. Some of you, it's your second or third or fourth workshops. And so wherever you are, I really do appreciate your dedication to your health. And tonight is really one of my favorite workshops. Henry Winsor was a medical doctor. He was a neuropathologist. So he was Ducky on NCIS. Okay, if you ever watch those shows, the medical examiner, coroner type of thing. And his work was done a long time ago. I was already a chiropractor when I first read it, and it was like, and it changed my life. It changed my career in what was going on with it. And I think that you'll really enjoy some of this stuff. I'll ask that you, if you have any questions, write them down, and then I'll try and answer them at the end of the question. But if you do have, if everybody has something, I would like for you to write this thing right down now, because I want you to go home and tonight or in the next evening or two, I want you to get online and watch this particular thing. And it's called A Better Way Movie.com.
ABetterWayMovie.com.
Yeah, the movie is A Better Way, but then when you're going online, it's ABetterWayMovie.com. So it'll all be one word when you're doing that. It's something that's supposed to actually debut in July, but they moved it up just for me. No, they because of the coronavirus pandemic shelter-in-place stuff. They said, you know what, we're gonna move this up because we think it's something people need to hear sooner. And I've watched it, and it really is powerful. And I really want you to watch it and tell other people to watch it, because while it's online, it's for free. That's my favorite price, right? For free. But it is a really, really great thing. If you've been here before, you've heard us talk about that we started doing workshops 25 years or so ago, because we started to see that the health potential, or the health in the United States, was going downhill. And in fact, when we started doing our workshops, the United States actually ranked 13th in the world. And that's not bad, because there's a lot of countries. The last time I looked, which has been about 3 years ago, because these stats just make me mad, we were like 40th in the world. Okay? So there are a whole bunch of other countries where we could go live and expect to live longer than we do here. All right? Yet we spend more money than all of the other countries in the world combined on this so-called healthcare thing, yet we get the 40th best result. What's wrong with that picture, right? Okay? I sort of relate it like, that, a person who's been saving money for a long, long time because they want to buy a really fine car. So they've got like $200,000 cash to go buy a car. So they go to the car dealership and they plop their money down. They're thinking Lamborghini, really bad Ferrari, something like that. And out drives an old beat-up, rusty Pinto wagon. The picture doesn't match, does it? Okay? So we really, if we really weren't spending any money or trying to be taking care of our health, then so what if we're 40th, right? But we're spending more money than all of the other countries in the world. So that's one of the reasons why we need to do this, because truly, did you know we take 7,000 prescription pills per second in the United States? So if prescription drugs made us healthier, wouldn't we be number one by far? Because we take over 50% of all the prescription drugs in the world, and we're only 6% of the world's population. Okay? So what I'm not saying is don't ever take a medication, don't ever, that's not what I'm saying. If my blood pressure is 220 over 160, I hope that I can get a blood pressure medicine to get my blood pressure down to where I won't have a stroke or a heart attack. But the problem is that we just sort of leave it at that, right? They go, well, Greg, your blood pressure is really high. Here are these blood pressure pills. Now, you're going to need to take those for the rest of your life, right? But what we should be doing is, okay, thank you, because I don't want to have a stroke or a heart attack, but now I need to figure out why is my blood pressure so high? And let's figure that out. and then let's fix that, and then maybe I can get off that medicine. Because see, the medication doesn't fix it. All it does is it helps. I'm trying to think of the right word, but
What's that?
it fakes us into having normal blood pressure, okay? In other words, it doesn't fix the problem. It makes my blood pressure reading normal, but it doesn't fix the problem. You know, if you were at our stress workshop, you learned a lot about that, of how that can happen. So I want to get into Dr. Windsor's work, and what I want you to do is, I'm going to read this was the title of his research article, okay? And I want everybody to repeat it after I say it right here. The evidences of the association in dissected cadavers of visceral diseases with vertebral deformities of the same sympathetic nerve segments. Now, everybody repeat it, okay? So, let me put it into English.
I've read it twice. I don't understand what he's saying.
What he was wanting to do was to see, was there a correlation between the spine and organ function in our body? Okay, that's what he was looking for. Because see, clear back when he did this research, osteopaths still manipulated the spine. Obviously, chiropractors adjust the spine. And he was seeing things of how people not only were having backaches and that kind of stuff, and their back pain got better, but he also was observing the fact that people that were having organic problems, you know, stomach problems, liver problems, or whatever, and they were getting better. And so it was like, you know, more like, and I'm just acting his part, but it's like, how's that happening? I want to research and see what is that really. You know, I hear these quacks out there saying that can happen, and I just, you know, and I just want to see if that's really true or not. So he went through a lot of that, and so I don't want to disservice him at all. So I'm going to read a number of his quotes that came out of his research. Okay, so bear with me on this, but I found this one really interesting. He said, regarding minor curvatures, regarding minor curvatures, Dr. Winsor said that their association with disease of organs belonging to the same sympathetic segments is more frequent than with gross curves. Now, let me go back. Sympathetic nervous system. There are two parts to the central nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system, I always jokingly say that's the one that feels sorry for us. But no, it's really the fight or flight nervous system. Okay? It's the one that you hear people do almost superhuman things when there was something fell that was real heavy and they could literally lift it up. And even though it caused damage to their bodies, they were able to get that person out from underneath the car, or those stories we've heard. It's that one that if somebody came barging through here with a gun, okay, or a knife, that's the nervous system that kicks in, that says we're either going to have to fight that person and take the gun or knife from them, or we're going to have to flight, we're going to have to run away, right? So there are certain body things that have to happen. So that's the sympathetic. The other side is the parasympathetic nervous system. That's the exact opposite. It's the quaalude one. It's the, hey dude, everything's calm, everything's cool. But it's also, the parasympathetic system is really the one that is really more of our healer. Okay? It's really what promotes most of our healing. So that's an extremely important one also. And when our body is working properly, then everything works fine. If the guy with the knife comes in here until somebody kicks his fanny and takes the knife from him, there's going to be certain things going on that we're going to have to do that. But once we have taken the knife away and the danger is gone, now everything should calm down, right? But it's when they're improperly balanced that it's sort of like the sympathetic nervous system is the gas pedal and the parasympathetic is the brake. And as long as both of them work, and as long as you only put your foot on one or the other, right? But in our lives, so much of it is that we have our foot on the gas pedal, and then we're trying to stop, and we finally wear our brakes out. Okay, and that's the problem. So what he said here was that minor curves actually affected the organs more than gross curves. That didn't make sense to me, because I thought, well, if a little curvature is bad, a big curvature must be worse, right? And he didn't find that to be necessarily so. Now, if scoliosis gets to a certain extent, yes, it can literally kill you because it's crushing your heart or your lungs or something like that. And so this was amazing here. He took 75 cadavers and he traced what it is. He went in and looked to find the diseased organs. And he found 139 diseased organs. He traced the nerve supply back from that diseased organ to the spine. And in 128 of the 139 organs, he found that was where the spine was the most misaligned, the most degenerated, the most diseased. 128 out of 139. That's like 92% or something like that. I also jokingly say, if I'd have been there, I'd have found those other 11. No. but that was amazing to me that it was that, because I know that the nervous system runs the body. So I can understand that if the nerves are interfered with, that it goes to an organ, that could affect that. But his research showed 128 out of 139. That was like, wow. Okay, we really need to understand that.
What were the diseases?
Heart disease, lung disease, whatever the organ disease was. I mean, he had a whole list of them. I mean, it was
Like cancers?
I don't recall if it was actually of cancers, but I know it was just all kinds of diseases. When he was doing his work, it was long enough ago that cancer was sort of a rare enough thing that Bill, I honestly can't remember if cancer was part of that. I would think so. I mean, just personally, because, well, and that's not really for here. And he also found that in no cases did he find what he called compressive pathology. In other words, a true pinched nerve.
Really?
We call it pinched all the time, right? Oh yeah, I got this pinched nerve here. It's not really pinched. It's irritated, it's tractioned on, but it's not pinched like you and I would think of as being pinched, okay? But he found, and here's just another quote. Sympathetic nerve disturbances are just as likely to be functional in viscera's organ. So nerve disturbances are just as likely to be functional in organs, and it happens by altering the blood supply to the organ. Okay? And how that happens is that it causes the blood vessel to spasm. So that was the osteopathic philosophy back then, is it was bad blood, okay? In other words, that wasn't getting enough blood to the area. That's why the pain was there, or the organ damage was there, or whatever. And what they found was that's true, but the reason why the blood flow was altered was because of the nerve interference causing the blood vessel to spasm. So that's why osteopaths today, your MD might be an osteopath, DO, right? Because their education is the same. They sort of lost their rudder. They lost, because now their philosophy wasn't true. Okay, it was a secondary philosophy. The chiropractic premise is that the nervous system runs the body, and so if you interfere with the nerves, it can affect it. And so that's what happened. So the nerve interference is an irritation that causes increased sympathetic tone, increased nerve tone, which causes the blood vessel to spasm and the reduced blood flow. It was rare, again a quote, it was rare to find an organ disease which was not supplied by the same sympathetic nerves as the vertebrae in curvature. 128 out of 139 is what his particular research showed. He also was talking about bony exudates. Those are bone spurs, okay? But what he found was that what he found is I'm not saying that right. If he found no diseased organs, he found no spinal degeneration. Or actually, if he found no spinal degeneration, when he traced the nerve supply out to the organs, he didn't find any organ diseases there. Okay? So he said later in this, and I'll probably say it a couple more times, that the spine is the first thing that ages. Okay? And then old age follows after that. Okay? So we really need to understand, how important that spine and the nervous system is. He was talking about, like maybe the death certificate said acute liver failure. Okay? So that's what they died of, was acute liver failure. When he did the autopsies, listen to this and I'll try and explain it. The organs were in many instances affected by acute disease, while the deformed vertebrae proved that the curvatures preceded the organic diseases. In other words, the nerve interference had been present for quite a long time. So if we're using liver failure, the nerves going to the liver were interfered with, so the liver couldn't work the way it was supposed to, and it started then breaking down. But it wasn't until it got to a certain diseased point, like 70% of the liver was damaged or something, until they all of a sudden turned yellow and started having all the pain. So the problem had been there a really long time. We just didn't know that we had that problem until it was so advanced, and then it was not reversible. And just, by the way, what would you guys say is the most common cause of acute liver failure in the United States today?
Drinking.
Good answer, but that's incorrect.
I would assume the prescription pills at this point. No?
It's not even a prescription pill. Tylenol.
Oh.
Tylenol is the #1 cause of acute liver disease in the United States today. Isn't that amazing? And
Well, I quit taking ibuprofen because my doctor said don't take it.
yeah, and so many of the things, and so many of even the powerful drugs like hydrocodone and stuff, they have Tylenol in them. Okay, and so you're taking this, and then you take a couple of Tylenol for that, but it's the number one cause of liver failure. So now he was talking about the disease of spondylosis or bone spurs, and he said, and this is just another quote: the disease, bone spur, appears to precede old age and cause old age. The spine becomes stiff first, and old age follows. Therefore, a person is as old as his or her spine. The arteries becoming hardened later from constant blood vessel spasm following nerve irritation. So see, folks, it still goes back to the nerve interference is what it's causing. And he sort of repeated himself a lot of times, but I just put these in here. The irritation of the sympathetic nerves causes blood vessel spasm, deranging the blood supply of the organs supplied by the sympathetic nerve segments, the levels of the spine, or levels of that. So then he did a thing where and you kitty cat lovers out there, they didn't euthanize the cats, they just anesthetized them to do some studies. Okay, they didn't kill them, they just did an operation on them. So there were 22 cats that were in this study, and what they did was they went to T9, which on you and I is about 2-3 inches below our shoulder blades. And they, with digital pressure, they hyperextended that vertebrae out of alignment. Okay, they subluxated it. And the abdominal aorta, that's the nerve supply to the abdominal aorta, the pulsations of the aorta pretty much stopped. And then as soon as they flexed that vertebra back into alignment, it started pulsing just like it was supposed to. Then they went into the upper thoracic spine, where the nerves that go to the heart, and they did the same thing. They extended them out of alignment, and they said the top 2 chambers in the heart, the atriums, the auricles, literally they became inconsistent and very weak. Irregular would be better than inconsistent, but irregular and weak spasming. And as soon as they flexed that vertebra back into alignment, it said it spurted blood in jets. In other words, it went back to that good, strong contraction. So, folks, we have to understand how important that nervous system, really, really is. Like I said, it's what runs our body. So many of our health problems today, folks, are actually power problems. If I walked into the office this morning and I flipped the light switch on for all these lights and the lights don't come on, okay, then I know I didn't pay my light bill. No, I probably wouldn't think, wow, all of the light bulbs blew out all at the same time. That's probably not what I'm thinking, right? I'm going, dang, the breaker's been thrown, right? So I wonder, is it the whole office? Is it just this bank of lights, or what is it? But it's a power problem. So I could put brand new lights in there. I could go buy the most expensive LED fluorescent bulbs that I could possibly find and put them in there, and would that make the lights come back on? No. The symptom is the light bulbs are off, but the problem is there's no power, right? Not until I would go flip the breaker back on would the lights come back on. And see, that's what happens in our bodies, folks, is that we we end up having a power problem, and then eventually I get a symptom. So whether it's that I have low back pain, or whether maybe my tummy aches or whatever, and we think, oh, well, you know, I have muscle spasms here, so maybe I go somewhere and they give me muscle relaxer, okay? Or I've got this thing and they go, Greg, you've got an ulcer, here's some Tagamet or some whatever that, you know, that they might be wanting to give me. But if it's the nerves that are interfered with, in other words, if I have nerve interference, and classically it's a T6 is the one that goes to our stomach. Let's just say that I had that nerve interference, and it was affecting the nerves that caused secretion of acid into my stomach. So now, that stomach, I mean, the acid just poured into my stomach, right? What's going to happen?
An ulcer.
Yeah, it's going to burn a hole in my stomach, right? I'm going to get an ulcer. And so what they do, you know, so, well, wow, Greg, you've got an ulcer. You have too much acid. We're going to give you an antacid. We're going to give you an antacid to, you know, to try and negate all of that. Did that fix the problem? No. You know, it might keep from that stomach, you know, burning a hole in my stomach. But if I'm neutralizing all the acid in my stomach, now when I eat, I don't have enough digestive acids to digest my food. And when you don't digest your food, guess what happens? You get an ulcer. So see, until they would go flip that breaker switch back on at T6, would my problem ever be fixed? Okay, does that make sense? See, and there's so many people, if you listen to what Dr. Windsor's, that particular research study said 128 out of 139 of them, their breaker switch was thrown, okay? And that's not true. It's more like a rheostat, okay? It's like you brighten it or dim it. It's not like a breaker where it actually is zero. It's either 100% or 0%. There's power going, it just isn't going. It's either going too much, so I have too much acid being secreted, or not enough, so that I don't have enough acid being secreted into my stomach. And just by the way, I found that most people, when they start developing GERD, you know, remember we used to call it heartburn? But see, when it was heartburn, all they could sell you was Tums and Pepto-Bismol. But now where it's gastroesophageal reflux disease, now we can sell you stuff that costs $10 a pill, and we want you to take a couple a day, okay? So, but what I've found is that most of the cases that have come in our office that have GERD, if they didn't have subluxation of T6, or if there was and it didn't get better, usually by giving them hydrochloric acid tablets, giving them acid tablets actually fixes the problem more than not. Most people aren't producing enough acid, okay? So again, what we talked about then, so that food's laying in my stomach and it's not getting digested. This time of year it gets warm outside. If you're driving down the road and there's some roadkill over there and you drive by about 3 days after, oh my gosh, right, how it stinks. It's decomposing, it's breaking down, it's putting off gas. So if I've got food sitting in my gut and it's laying in there and fermenting, it's rotting, now I start burping, right? Because I've got this gas. Well, as I burp, the acid that is in my stomach goes up into my esophagus and burns my esophagus, and they go, "Whoa, Greg, you've got a burned esophagus here. We need to give you an antacid." And that just makes the problem even worse. About 7 out of 10 people that are having that, and we give them the hydrochloric acid tablets, their digestive problems go away, because we're actually getting to the true problem and not treating the symptom of that I'm burning the gut. Okay, so we really, and I got off base there just a little bit. So let's just review real quickly here. Well, let's just first, Andrew Weil, MD. I don't know if any of y'all know Andrew Weil, MD. He's one of the world's leading authorities on wellness, okay? He said doctors should concentrate on prevention and stimulating the body's own natural healing powers. Most drugs just prevent the disease from expressing itself symptomatically. Symptoms disappear, but the disease actually gets progressively worse. We were talking about that stomach acid secretion and stuff like that. So you give me something to keep my gut from burning up, but the problem is it going to get better? No, it's just going to get worse, because it's because we're not treating the problem. So review, and I said, most of these things are actually power problems. They're not a true health problem. Curvatures or misalignments of the spine adversely affect our sympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic nervous system controls the blood supply to the organs and therefore is related to all manner of disease. Organ diseases and pathology can be traced back to segmental levels of sympathetic nerve involvement. Prolonged abnormal spinal posture stretches the sympathetic nervous system. We didn't really go into this one very much. We just sort of talked about the bone spur, causing blood supply to be reduced to the organs, which again stars the organ and causes disease of the organ. Abnormal spinal curvatures precede organic visceral diseases, organ diseases. And spinal diseases precede old age and cause old age. It's all from Henry Winsor, MD. Stiff, distorted spines cause sympathetic irritation, blood vessel spasm, hardening of the arteries, and old age follows. When you hear of so many things today, in fact, I'm reading a book by Dr. Daniel Amen. He's a psychiatrist, and he's found that he gets much greater results with mental illnesses and stuff by treating them organically, by treating them with supplementation and trying to teach them to not do the things that cause the problem, okay? But he's found through supplementation and just quit doing the things that are causing the damage, he's getting way greater results than that. And the thing with all of those mental problems is decreased blood flow. So it's everywhere. I mean, if you listen to an ED commercial, what do they say? It's decreased blood flow. Right. We're not getting there. But what runs our nervous system? I mean, what runs our blood flow?
Uh-huh.
Our nervous system. So we're truly as old as our spine. Okay? Good old Albert Einstein, pretty smart dude back in the day. He said this. He said, your current state brought you where you are. If you plan to improve your life, you must change roads or at least change lanes. Because what did he say insanity is? Doing the same thing over and over and over and expect to get a different result. That's what he's saying. If I'm getting a certain result and I keep doing the same thing, I'm going to get the same result, aren't I? I mean, I'm not a rocket scientist, but I can figure that one out pretty easy, okay? So, you know what? We really need to apply this to our lives and to our families' lives. As a nation, and this has nothing to even do with this corona thing, but as a nation, we're getting sicker and sicker. More than 70% of adults today have a chronic disease. Did you know when I first went into practice, it was about 30%. So either we were horrible at diagnosing chronic disease back then, or oh my God, look at what's happened. Okay? We're taking more medicines, we're eating crappier foods, and look at the results that we're getting. Okay? So we really need to be better. So, Joe came into our office at the insistence of his wife. Dot had came in, and you could look at Dot and see that she had health issues, and she did. Her spine was all messed up, and we started adjusting her. She was doing much better. Then Joe, her husband, who was about 7-8 years older than her, had a lot of heart and lung problems, and so he just sat in the car. Okay, and then it got to be this time of year, started getting too hot to sit in the car, so he started walking in. They would walk from their car to the elevator, their elevator to our office, and his face was almost as blue as my black slacks. Okay, I mean, literally had a blue face. I hoped and prayed that he wasn't going to die in my office. Literally, just AMA would have had a field day on that one. Man dies in chiropractor's office. They wouldn't have written that he was just sitting here waiting on his wife, right? Finally, Doc talked Joe into getting checked. Joe was a phase 3.75 of subluxation degeneration. In other words, he had massive osteoarthritis, bone spurs, his discs. There were almost fusion in a lot of the areas of his spine. He had had these heart and lung problems for years and years and years. He averaged actually going in the hospital about every 3 weeks. I mean, this guy was so sick that about the time he got out of the hospital, he'd have to go back in. And so I checked him, and he was a mess. There were several times that I would let him lie on the table, and I would go adjust someone else because he was so out of breath that I was afraid if I would have made a mid-back adjustment on him, the wind would have gone out, and he would have never got it back. 2 weeks after we started adjusting him, his face was no longer blue. It was bright red. So it wasn't normal, but he was getting more oxygen into his body. Okay? About 8 months, maybe it was 10 months into his care, he went down to one of the doctors that he saw twice a year in Houston. They did all the tests. They came back in and they said, because Joe and Dot were telling me, they said, "What happened? What's going on?" You know, and they said at first it scared him. It was like, "Oh crap! You know, it's getting worse even faster." Whatever. They said, "Why?" And he goes, "Joe, your tests are better than any of the tests we've ever done in the 7 years I've been one of your doctors. What's been happening?" And they couldn't really think at the time, but as they left the office, they were driving home. They were thinking about it. The only thing they changed is they had both started to get adjusted. Okay, it had been 3 months since Joe had been in the hospital. Joe was under care for about 1.5 years, and he died of a heart attack. Now, the quality of those days that he had were a whole heck of a lot better than the quality that he had before, and maybe even the quantity of those days. So we can look at it from that side of it. But, you know, the Paul Harvey, the rest of the story, he was a phase 3.75. That means that he had been subluxated for most of his life. What if society was that when a child was born, you had them checked by a chiropractor to see if they have subluxation. If they do, clear that subluxation out. Or maybe at age 5, it's like, okay, now you take your kid to the chiropractor. What if somebody would have told Joe's mom, you know, you really should take little Joe in and have his spine and nerve system checked by a chiropractor? What might have changed in his life? He spent decades essentially being an invalid because he had really bad heart and lung problems. And it was like, well, Joe, that's just too bad. You know, dang it, you know, we're doing all we can. And you know what? And they did their best. But if the breaker's thrown, changing the light bulbs isn't going to fix the problem, is it? You know, 9.5 out of every 10 people that you know actually have subluxation. Yet only 1.5 out of every 10 that you know are being adjusted. And so that's where we ask for your help, because our mission is to see that every man, woman, and child on the planet has their spine and nerve system checked for subluxation. Some of you have already referred people in and stuff, but the last page of your notes, there's actually a list where you can write names down. And I encourage you to write names. Start with your family, you know, then your friends, your coworkers, maybe even that jerk that works down the hall from you. Maybe he just has a really bad atlas subluxation, and if we could just get that adjusted, he wouldn't be such a jerk, right? But I really encourage people to be checked. So on that page, if you'd like to have someone checked, write their name down, circle number 2 to the right of their name, and if they live in our area, we will do that examination at no charge for them, just to see if they actually should even be here or not. If you'd like them to attend a workshop, circle number 1 next to their name. We'll invite them to a workshop, or you can bring them to a workshop. Number 3 on that list is I can actually give them a call. So if they have some kind of a health condition or something like that, and you think that would work best, I would want you to tell them that I'm going to call, so that I'm just, you know, not another telemarketer, right? But you never know what you may say, think, or do today that could change the lives of millions tomorrow. So I'll be quiet for a minute. When you're done writing on that, put your name at the bottom of the list. That way Tracy knows who to give those. She's going to give you some exam cards so that you can actually give them to those people. We won't harass them. So I'll shut up for a minute, and you can